I'm 82 years old, and I need to tell you something that might make you uncomfortable. Something nobody told me until it was almost too late. Something I wish I'd understood 55 years ago. I spent my entire life being busy, running, rushing, doing, achieving, crossing things off lists, answering emails, taking meetings, solving problems that felt urgent but weren't important. I was always moving. And I thought that meant I was living. I was wrong about everything. 5 years ago, something happened that shattered the life I thought I was building. It stripped away every excuse, every justification, every lie I'd been telling myself for more than half a century, and it forced me to see the truth. I had confused activity with meaning, motion with purpose, being occupied with being alive. I was the busiest person I knew. I had calendars color-coded down to 15-minute blocks. I had systems. I had productivity hacks. I had achievements that would fill 3 obituaries, but I didn't have a life, not really. If you're anything like I was, if you're proud of how busy you are, if you wear your exhaustion like a medal, if you tell yourself you'll slow down someday, then this story is for you. Because I'm not sharing this to make myself feel better. I'm sharing this because you deserve to hear what I wish someone had told me at 30, at 40, at 50. Before I wasted the best decades of my life running on a hamster wheel I didn't realize I could step off. You have more choices than you think, but you have less time than you believe, and the clock is already ticking. It was a Tuesday, November 14th, 5 years ago. I was 77 years old. I remember the date because I had 17 things scheduled that day. Meetings, calls, a lunch I didn't want to attend, a dinner I felt obligated to show up for. Even at 77, I was still running. I'd technically retired at 65. But retirement just meant I volunteered for 3 different boards, consulted for 2 companies, and somehow had less free time than when I was working full-time. That was just who I was, or so I thought. I was in the middle of a phone call when it happened. Something about a committee report, something that seemed incredibly important at the time, and then suddenly it wasn't. The left side of my face went numb. My arm felt heavy. The words on my lips turned to mush, coming out wrong. Scrambled, I knew what was happening. Stroke. The next thing I remember is waking up in a hospital room. White walls, beeping machines, the smell of antiseptic. My wife was there, Helen, her hand on mine, her eyes red from crying. I tried to speak, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. I tried to move, but my left side was gone, just gone. And in that moment, lying in that hospital bed, completely still for the first time in decades, I had a thought that terrified me more than the stroke itself. If I had died on that phone call, what would my last words have been? Something about committee reports, something that wouldn't matter in a week, something nobody would remember. Is that the legacy you want? Because that was almost mine. For 3 weeks I couldn't speak properly. The words were there in my head, but they came out wrong, slurred, jumbled. So I was forced to do something I hadn't done in 50 years. Be quiet, just exist. No meetings to run to, no calls to take, no problems to solve, nothing to check off any list. Just silence. And in that silence the questions came. What have I actually done with my life? Not accomplished, done, experienced, felt, shared. If I looked back at 77 years, could I point to moments of real joy, real presence, real connection, or just achievements, milestones that looked impressive on paper but felt hollow in my chest? I realized I couldn't remember my daughter's first steps. I was there. Helen tells me I was there, but I was probably thinking about work. I couldn't remember my son's first home run. I know he hit one because I have a photo of me standing next to him, smiling, but I have no actual memory of watching him swing the bat. I couldn't remember my wife's face on our 30th anniversary. We went to dinner, somewhere nice, that's all I've got. Decades of life, reduced to facts without feelings, dates without memories. I had been there for everything, and I had been present for nothing. The physical recovery from my stroke took months. I got most of my speech back, most of my mobility. Doctors said I was lucky, but the real recovery, that's still happening. Because it wasn't my body that was broken, it was my entire way of living. When I was 27, I made a decision. I was going to be successful, whatever that meant, whatever it took. I was going to matter, and I believed the way to matter was to do more, be more, achieve more. So I started running. I told myself, when I get this promotion, then I'll slow down. I got the promotion. I didn't slow down. Then it was, when we buy the house, then I'll have more time for the family. We bought the house. I had less time than ever. Then, when the kids finish school, then Helen and I will travel. The kids finish school. We didn't travel. Then, when I retire, then I'll finally live. You see the pattern? There was always a when, always a then, always some future moment where life would magically become meaningful. But that moment never came, because I kept moving the goalposts. At 35, I missed my daughter's school play because of a work emergency. I told her I'd make the next one, so I waited. At 42, I canceled a family vacation because a client needed me. I promised Helen we'd reschedule, so I waited. At 50, my father asked me to take a fishing trip with him. Just the two of us, like we used to when I was a kid. Maybe next summer, I said. He died that winter. So I waited, again and again and again. For 50 years, I chose later over now, and later never came. Here's what nobody tells you about being busy. It feels productive. It feels like you're building something. It feels like sacrifice, noble sacrifice for people you love. But it's not. It's avoidance. I was avoiding hard conversations with my wife, avoiding my own emotions, avoiding the terrifying question of what I actually wanted from life. Because if I stopped moving long enough to ask myself, I might not like the answer, so I stayed busy. I filled every minute with tasks and meetings and obligations, and I called it living, but it wasn't living. It was hiding. I looked successful, important, valuable. But inside, I was exhausted, resentful, empty. I had the career everyone admired, the house in the nice neighborhood, the reputation as someone who got things done. But I didn't have relationships, not real ones. I didn't have memories, not meaningful ones. I didn't have myself, not anymore. Somewhere along the way, I had traded who I was for what I did, and I didn't even notice until I was lying in that hospital bed, unable to do anything at all. Let me tell you about the lies I believed for 55 years. The lies you probably believe right now, the lies that are stealing your life while you're too busy to notice. Lie number 1, busy means important. I wore my busyness like a badge of honor. When someone asked how I was doing, I'd say, busy, so busy, and I'd say it with pride, like it meant something, like it proved my worth, but busy doesn't mean important. Busy often means unfocused, scattered, afraid to say no, addicted to the feeling of being needed. I knew people who were far less busy than me, and they were far happier, far more present, far more alive, but I looked down on them. Must be nice, I'd think, to have so much free time. I was an idiot. They weren't lazy, they were wise. They understood something I didn't learn until 77. You don't have to earn your right to exist. You don't have to justify your life with productivity. You are allowed to just be. Lie number 2, I have time. This is the deadliest lie of all. I'll call my mother next week. I'll take that trip next year. I'll tell them I love them tomorrow. Tomorrow, next week, next year, someday. Do you know what someday really means? Never. Someday is where dreams go to die. Someday is the lie we tell ourselves to avoid the discomfort of action. I spent 50 years believing I had unlimited some days. I didn't, neither do you. You want to know something that haunts me? My friend Richard. We worked together for 30 years. He was more driven than me, more successful, more busy. He used to say, when I retire, I'm going to sail around the world. He talked about it constantly. He had maps, he had brochures, he had a boat picked out. He died 6 months after he retired, heart attack. At his funeral, his wife said, he worked so hard his whole life. He just wanted a little time for himself. He never got it. And I sat in that church pew, and I thought that could be me. It almost was me, don't you see? The time you're waiting for doesn't exist. There is no magical future where everything calms down and you can finally live. There's only now, right now, this moment, and you're spending it being busy. Lie number 3, that they'll understand. I told myself my family understood, that they knew I loved them even when I wasn't there, that they knew my absence was for them, that they appreciated the sacrifice. They didn't. My daughter told me years later that she spent her childhood thinking I didn't want to be around her. My son said he learned early that he wasn't as important as whatever was on my schedule. My wife said she felt like a single mother for most of our marriage. I had convinced myself that providing for them was the same as being there for them. It wasn't, not even close. They didn't need my money, they didn't need my success, they didn't need a bigger house or nicer vacations. They needed me. And I wasn't there. What are you sacrificing right now, thinking your family will understand? Will they really? You want to know what keeps me up at 3 in the morning? Not the big failures, not the career setbacks or the deals that fell through. It's the small moments, the ones I can never get back. Let me tell you about them, because maybe if you hear mine, you'll recognize your own before it's too late. My daughter's 8th birthday. She wanted a butterfly theme, purple butterflies. She talked about it for weeks. She made invitations by hand. She was so excited. I missed it. There was a presentation. Something about quarterly projections. Something I can't even remember now. Helen took photos. In one of them, my daughter's blowing out candles. 8 little flames. And there's an empty chair next to her. That was supposed to be me. She's 47 now, a mother herself. And I still can't look at that photo without feeling sick. That's regret number 1. The trip to Ireland. Helen's grandmother was Irish. Helen always wanted to visit, see the village her family came from, walk the same streets. For 30 years, she asked. For 30 years, I said, next year, honey, when things calm down. Things never calmed down. Her grandmother died, then her mother. The stories faded, the connection thinned. Last year we finally went. Helen stood in that village square, 80 years old, and she cried. I wish my mother could have seen this with me, she said. I took that from her. 30 years of next year took that from her. That's regret number 2. My father's last Christmas. I didn't know it was his last. You never do. He asked if I could come home for the whole week. Not just Christmas Day, the whole week, like when I was a kid. Dad, I can't. I've got too much going on. I showed up on Christmas morning, left the next afternoon. He walked me to the car, hugged me longer than usual. I'm proud of you, son, he said. I just miss you. Those were almost the last words he ever said to me. He died in February, and I have spent the last 37 years wishing I had stayed that extra week. What would it have cost me? A few meetings, some emails? What did it cost me to leave? Everything. That's regret number 3, the novel I never wrote. When I was 22, I wanted to be a writer. I had stories in my head, characters, worlds. I wrote 50 pages of a novel my senior year of college. My professor said it showed promise. But writing didn't pay the bills. Writing wasn't practical. Writing wasn't what responsible adults did. So I put it away, told myself I'd come back to it someday. I found those 50 pages 2 years ago in a box in the attic. The paper was yellow, the ink was faded, but the words were still alive. And I sat there 80 years old reading sentences I wrote at 22, and I wept. For the writer I abandoned, for the stories that died inside me, for the life I could have lived if I hadn't been so afraid. That's regret number 4. The words I never said. To Helen, you deserve someone who shows up. I'm sorry I didn't. To my daughter, you were never second place to my work. I was just too blind to show it. To my son, I should have thrown the ball with you more. I should have been at your games. I should have asked about your dreams instead of your grades. To my mother, thank you for everything you sacrificed. I didn't appreciate it until you were gone. To myself, you are enough. Even when you're not productive, even when you're not achieving, you are enough. I said some of these words eventually, but eventually isn't the same as when it mattered. That's regret number 5. These aren't abstract regrets. They're not, I wish I'd worked less. That's too easy, too vague. These are the specific moments, the exact choices, the precise points where I turned left when I should have turned right, and they add up. 55 years of small choices, 55 years of later, 55 years of putting the urgent over the important. And now I'm 82, and I can see every single one of them. Can you see yours? Or are you still too busy to notice? After my stroke, I made a decision. Actually, that's not quite right. After my stroke, I stopped making excuses. I was 77 years old. I had maybe a few years left, maybe more, maybe less, nobody knows. But however much time I had, I wasn't going to waste it anymore. The first thing I did was quit everything, every board, every committee, every obligation I had accumulated like barnacles over decades. I sent resignation letters to all of them. Some people were shocked, some were offended. I didn't care. For the first time in 50 years, I had an empty calendar, and it terrified me. I didn't know who I was without things to do, without meetings to attend, without problems to solve. I had to learn. The second thing I did was apologize to Helen for decades of being present but not there, to my daughter for missing so much of her childhood, to my son for prioritizing success over him. These were hard conversations. Some of them took hours. Some of them took months. My son didn't speak to me for 6 weeks after I apologized. He needed time to process, to grieve, to decide if he could forgive me. He did, eventually. We're closer now than we've ever been, but I had to go through the fire to get there. The third thing I did was start living, really living. Helen and I took that trip to Ireland. We spent 3 weeks there, no schedule, no itinerary, just wandering. I started writing again, not the novel, it's too late for that, but stories, essays, letters to my grandchildren about things I've learned. I took my grandson fishing. We sat in a boat for 4 hours and barely talked. It was the best 4 hours of my year. I learned to cook badly, but Helen laughs when I make dinner, and that's worth every burnt meal. I started saying no to obligations that drained me, to people who only called when they needed something, to invitations that felt like duties instead of joys, and I started saying yes, to spontaneous lunches with old friends, to random road trips, to afternoon naps and evening walks and mornings where I just sit with my coffee and watch the birds. This sounds small, maybe it sounds insignificant to you. But after 55 years of running, stopping felt revolutionary. Here's the strange thing. I'm happier now at 82 with less time ahead than I was at 52 when I thought I had all the time in the world. I'm slower. I'm weaker. My body doesn't work like it used to. But I'm present. For the first time in my adult life, I'm actually here. And it took almost dying to get me there. Don't wait for your stroke. Don't wait for your heart attack. Don't wait for the doctor to tell you the news that changes everything. Start living now, today, this moment. The transformation is possible at any age. But the earlier you start, the more life you get to actually live. Let me ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. If you died tomorrow, would you be satisfied with how you spent today? Not impressed, not proud, satisfied. Would you feel like you used your hours well? Like you were present for the moments that mattered? Like you showed up for the people who love you? Or would you feel like you wasted it, running, rushing, being busy with things that don't matter? I know what I would have said at 40, at 50, at 60. I would have said, but I'm building something, I'm working towards something. All this busyness will pay off eventually. It didn't. It doesn't. The payoff never comes because the goalposts keep moving. You hit one milestone, you create another. You achieve one goal, you set a bigger one. You get to someday, and suddenly it's not good enough. There's a new someday to chase. It never ends, unless you choose to end it. I know what you're thinking right now, but my situation is different. I have responsibilities. I can't just stop being busy. Maybe when the kids are older. Maybe when I pay off the house. Maybe when work calms down. I thought all those things too, every single one, and they were all excuses. Sophisticated, logical, reasonable-sounding excuses, but excuses nonetheless. The truth is, you can choose differently. Right now, today. You can leave work at 5 instead of 7. You can skip the meeting that doesn't matter. You can say no to the obligation you resent. You can call your mother, take your kid to the park, sit with your spouse and actually talk. You can start living before you're 77 and lying in a hospital bed. But what will people think? Who cares? But what about my career? Your career will end, one way or another. And when it does, what will you have left? But I'll feel guilty. You'll feel more guilty when you're my age and you realize what you missed. Let me paint you a picture. It's 30 years from now. You're in a hospital bed. Or maybe you're at home, surrounded by family. Or maybe you're alone. And you're thinking back on your life. Will you remember the meetings, the emails, the quarterly reports? Or will you wish you'd spent more time with the people you love? Will you be grateful for all the promotions? Or will you wonder why you sacrificed so much for a company that replaced you within a month? Will you be proud of your productivity? Or will you grieve for the experiences you never had, the relationships you neglected, the person you never became? I know what I wish. I wish someone had grabbed me by the shoulders when I was your age and shook me. I wish someone had said, wake up, you're wasting your life. The busyness is a trap, and you're walking right into it. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm grabbing you by the shoulders. Wake up. You don't have as much time as you think. None of us do. If I could go back and talk to my younger self, here's what I would say. I would be direct. I would be blunt. I would not soften it, because soft words didn't work on me. Maybe they won't work on you either. Stop. Stop treating busyness as a virtue. Stop wearing your exhaustion like a medal. Stop saying, I don't have time, when what you mean is, it's not a priority. Stop postponing joy until someday. Stop missing birthdays and school plays and family dinners for work. Stop answering emails at 10 at night. Stop checking your phone when your kids are talking to you. Stop thinking you'll slow down when things calm down. Stop waiting for permission to live. Just stop. Start protecting your time like it's the precious finite resource it actually is. Start saying no to things that drain you. Start showing up for the people who matter. Start taking the trips you've been postponing. Start calling the people you've been meaning to call. Start writing the book, learning the instrument, taking the class. Start being present where you are instead of thinking about where you need to be next. Start living like you could die tomorrow, because you could. Any of us could. If you want to spend more time with your family, do it. Don't wait for the schedule to clear up. It won't. If you want to travel, book the ticket. Don't wait until you've saved enough money. There's never enough money. If you want to tell someone you love them, tell them. Don't assume they know. They need to hear it. If you want to apologize, apologize. Don't wait for the right moment. The right moment is now. If you want to quit the job that's killing your soul, quit. Don't wait for the economy to improve. Don't wait for the perfect new job. Take the leap. If you want to rest, rest. You are not a machine. You are not your productivity. You are allowed to simply exist without justifying your existence with output. The permission is granted. Nobody else is going to give it to you. Your boss won't give it to you. Your colleagues won't give it to you. Society won't give it to you. You have to give it to yourself. So give it right now, today, this moment. Do it now, not tomorrow, not next week, not when things calm down. Now. I'm 82 years old. I've been living intentionally for 5 years. 5 years out of 82. That's 6% of my life. 6%. And these have been the best 5 years, by far. I have less energy, less mobility, less time ahead. But I have more presence, more peace, more joy. I watch sunrises now. I never used to. I was too busy sleeping those extra 30 minutes preparing for the day ahead. Now I wake up early just to see the sky change colors. I listen to music without doing anything else. No multitasking, just sitting, just listening. I hold Helen's hand when we walk, something I stopped doing decades ago without even noticing. I call my children just to talk, not to ask about schedules or logistics, just to hear their voices. I'm present, finally, at 82. But I would give anything to have those 55 years back. To have started living for myself at 27 instead of 77. Imagine 55 years of presence instead of 55 years of running. Imagine 55 years of joy instead of 55 years of postponing joy. Imagine 55 years of actually being there instead of 55 years of planning to be there someday. I can't get that time back, but you still have yours. You still have decades ahead, maybe, probably. What are you going to do with them? The irony is when you understand time is limited, you start to actually live. You stop wasting it. You stop postponing happiness. You stop running from yourself. You start creating the life you want. Instead of waiting for it to appear, you start showing up for people instead of assuming they'll always be there. You start treating each day like the gift it actually is. That's what my stroke taught me. Not that life is short, I always knew that intellectually, but that life is happening now, today, this moment. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it entirely, just like I almost did. You have a choice right now, today, this moment. You can keep living the way you're living, busy, distracted, always running. Always chasing the next thing, always telling yourself you'll slow down someday. You can keep postponing the trip, missing the dinner, skipping the conversation, choosing the urgent over the important. You can keep believing you have unlimited time. And maybe you'll be lucky. Maybe you'll get to 77 without a stroke. Maybe you'll make it to retirement. Maybe you'll have those years you're counting on. Or maybe you won't. Maybe the diagnosis comes at 52. Maybe the accident happens at 45. Maybe the heart just stops at 60. You don't know. None of us know. The only thing we know for certain is that right now exists. This moment is real, and what you do with it matters. So what are you going to do? Are you going to keep running, or are you going to start living? I can't make this choice for you. Nobody can. But I can tell you what I wish I'd chosen. I wish I'd chosen presence over productivity. I wish I'd chosen people over achievements. I wish I'd chosen living over planning to live. I wish I'd understood that life isn't a dress rehearsal. This is it. This is the only chance you get. And every day you spend being busy is a day you'll never get back. Don't take 55 years to learn this. Don't wait for the stroke. Don't wait for the diagnosis. Don't wait for the loss that breaks you open. Learn it now, today, this moment. Someday is today. It always has been. If this resonated with you, I hope you'll share it. Not for me. I'm 82. I don't need views or subscribers or likes. But for every person who's running right now, who's convinced that busy means important, who's telling themselves they'll slow down someday, they need to hear this before it's too late. Subscribe if you want more truths like this. I have more to share, and not much time left to share them. Leave a comment. Tell me what you're going to do differently, what you're going to stop doing, what you're going to start. I read every single comment because I have time now. Finally, your time is precious. Thank you for spending some of it with me. Now go live, really live, before it's too late.